introducing my guest today, Nicole Hibbert. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Nicole, you're currently the head of finance at S1Ep1.
That is correct. Well done.
Fantastic. You're obviously here in studio because we wanted to connect with you and talk a little bit about your unconventional route to becoming in your role. You mentioned to me the other day, there was this route that you followed, and I love that word. What was it?
I definitely took the scenic route to
route.
becoming a chartered accountant.
And I love that. So I'm going to take you through sort of how I see it, and for our audience to also know what your route has been, and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritty as well.
Brilliant.
So I've got 3 years that you've been at head of finance for Synergy ERP. You've also worked for Avis for 6 years.
Correct. Avis was my family. They really gave me the start of my career that I treasure so much.
Oh, that's amazing. And then recently you've finished your chartered accountant in March. Was it 2020?
Yes. So
Tell us about that, yeah.
recently qualified. I matriculated in 2003 and like most went straight into full-time studies. Did my degree, did my honours, and unfortunately wasn't successful in that. I decided I wanted to start with my articles straight away. So started at a small firm, Nolan's Johannesburg, and studied part-time, which was tricky at the time. So, but managed to be successful in that. So passed my CTA, went on to write my board exam, and again wasn't successful first time round. And decided I needed a bit of a break from studying. It was a lot to comprehend, a lot to deal with in my mind that I'd studied so hard and wasn't successful with that. So I took a break. I took a long break. I took almost 7 years off from studying, pursued my career, and decided in 2016 that it was now time. I had grown as a person. I had decided what I wanted to do. So I started investigating the CA route again. Was mortified to find out that my qualification, my CTA qualification was essentially null and void, and I had to redo my CTA. And because of the time that had passed, I had to do 2 years because I had to do a bridging course. So mentally accepted it, started with the studies essentially over again, did my first year, was successful with that, went straight on to my CTA level 2 and was successful with that. And 2019, wrote all my board exams, ITC, my APT and my APC. And I think with the growth that I had done and the mental maturity and having a firm decision of what I wanted, I was successful with all of them.
It does sound like it's quite a scenic
It was.
Take me a little bit back to it's obviously you've done all of those at UNISA, if I'm correct.
Correct.
We spoke a little bit about sort of high school time. It was Allen Glen, if I've got it right, in Beltevreden Park. Was it?
Yes.
In the West Rand.
I didn't follow the conventional schooling route.
Yes.
Halfway through standard 6, I was given the opportunity to show jump and ride full time for one of the top coaches in the country, and jumped at the chance. It was such an opportunity. So for standard 6 and standard 7, I was riding 10 to 12 horses a day.
That's insane.
And then doing schooling in the evening.
Wow.
So it was a very special time in my life. What was lacking for me, which I picked up towards the end of my standard 7, was just the social aspect. I was engaging with adults at that time, and I was just missing peers of my own age and the jawling and the connecting. So at the end of standard 7, I said to my parents that I wanted to go back to high school and went to Allen Glen. I had a friend that went there, so I had a little bit of a wing woman. And started from standard 8 to matric.
That's amazing. And it's such a tough time to kind of join another school. I remember I also traveled in between different sort of towns with my dad. Used to work for the municipality, and also an accountant. But yeah, so and then at that specific age, going into a school is quite daunting, especially as a girl. Also, I can only speak for a girl, but yeah, to settle in when you're 15, 16, to bonds that have been created already. And I think in the workspace, we probably experience that also. We're forever like, having to join a new team or, sort of have other people around us that had been there for a while. So your school, how was it for you to join there?
Absolutely. I mean, I think especially in high school, standard 6 and standard 7 are where the teenagers are vulnerable, and that's when they find peers that they connect with. So I'd missed that connection, and like you quite rightly said, the groups had formed. So to go in standard 8 and see where I fit in, it was extremely hard. But I was very lucky to make some friends there, lifelong friends. I mean, I'm still in contact with them now, but it's difficult. Teenagers can be cruel. They really can.
Yeah. Did you fit in quite easily then, or did it take a while for you?
I think it did take a while, and like we spoke about, I feel that high school's a bit of a pyramid with your elite group on top. And let's say I was mid-management at high school, and there was always a part of me that wanted to be accepted by your elite cool kids. So I think that opened up a lot of insecurities. I was very sporty in high school, not a big girl, but built. I mean, I did so many sports, and people prey on your insecurities. People prey on your vulnerabilities, and I wouldn't say it has directly affected me, but it certainly shaped a people pleaser element in my personality, where you almost want to initiate the relationship with someone at the detriment to yourself, and to not be your true authentic self just to get accepted. And that's tough. That's a lot to take in, especially at a younger age.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you kind of feel those effects as, a woman in quite a high finance role still today?
I really do. And again, it's the people pleaser aspect, where you want to fit in, you want to be connected. As much as we don't like to admit it, we're still striving to be a woman in a business that was previously dominated by men. So you come in, you want to be part of the boys' club, you want to fit in, you want to make your mark, which the majority of men, it works. It really does. I can't say that, especially the men that I've dealt with, it's been a barrier, but it's difficult to navigate. It really does. And sometimes it takes you away from your authentic self, which then you have to either accept or work on.
Totally. And we spoke the other day about those moments that you kind of question yourself. Do you still experience those things?
All the time. I can't tell you how much I experience imposter syndrome, where I think to myself, what did I do to get here? What did I do to be on the CFO vlogcast? I mean, why me? And it's so tricky to really be kind to yourself and say, I deserve this. You worked so hard for where you came. You got to almost take away the outside voices, but the worst voices are your internal voices.
Oh, so true. I think we all experience it throughout our time. I think, it'd be wrong to say that only females experience it. I think men do the same as well. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when we first chatted and we spoke about the sport, and I remember that first morning, I was like, I want to talk to her about a little bit of like sport and what she's done before. And it popped in my head about horses. And then what happened when we spoke about it?
It was
I'm still getting
bizarre. And it was just, you battled to think about it, but we just clicked.
Yeah.
And when I told you horses, I literally saw your face go, no way.
Yeah. But listen, 8 to 10 horses a day. How would you describe that type of day for a 14-year-old?
I think, again, it goes back to a will to want to achieve, no matter what. I'd been given such an opportunity to learn from such a master in the industry that I jumped on the chance. Horses were at that stage, and still are to some extent, my passion. And to be given the opportunity to explore your passion It's just not many people get that opportunity. So you dedicate yourself. I mean, sure, there's mornings you wake up, you're like, I can't do this. If my bones ache, I need a rest. But you get up and you do it. And that's what the successful athletes, that's what the successful businessmen and women do. And it's just a drive that you have to decide if you want or not.
Yeah. No, it's completely. I remember having a little bit of experience with horses. I'll share it with you in the audience. I was going through this leadership course with one of the corporates in South Africa, and it was leadership through horses. And we thought, what was this about? But we would go off to this horse farm where they had all these horses, and then there was a lady that actually did a full 3-day course with us.
Wow.
And I just remember this this moment where you would take the horse around, and you would have to experience within yourself like a very sad moment or something that made you angry. And then you would take this horse around basically the camp, if you say it like that. And then we had another opportunity to think positively and, sort of confidently, and then how that horse reacted. I remember I thought about a really sad time. I had lost a brother when I was 10 years old. Immediately when someone says, think about a very sad time, that would have been it.
Of course.
And so how this horse wrapped his head around me as I was walking around this thing. So for me, not that we're just here to talk about horses today, but it leads me into, have you utilized this really competitive sport in business today?
Absolutely. When I was doing competitive show jumping, there's such a drive to succeed. You want to win. But the interesting thing is that there's two minds at play. It's not just like one athlete that's driving and pushing themselves. You have to listen and interact with your horse. And that's really helped me in my career, because I want to be successful. I want to drive to the top. But there's other elements at play. You're working with team members. You're not going to do it by yourself. You have to get the cooperation and input of your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have, we've spoken a little bit about, your background. And I think the last sort of question also prevalent for women in finance is, you're married.
Yes.
You have a little boy, 2.5 years old, is he?
Yes, he reminds me every day.
How did you meet your husband?
So, don't quote me. We did articles together. So, being at a smaller firm, it's not such a set intake as the big Four firm. People come and go throughout the year, not just in January. So my husband had started articles in November. I started in December. And by February, we were dating. And that was 14 years ago. We've been married almost 7 years, and the rest is history, as they say.
Amazing. And obviously you studied throughout the time, and then, you got through it all and then decided it's time to start a family.
Yeah, it was always the plan after my board exam to then start exploring extending our family. Yeah. It happened a bit quicker than we had expected. But yeah, he's just the most incredible little boy.
I'm so happy for you. And I saw some pictures and he's just the cutest. Right. What made you decide to go this accounting route?
Accounting has always been my academic passion. Right from high school, I loved it. I had the most incredible accounting teacher. And what was interesting was that she was actually a substitute teacher, but she really drove my passion. And it's easy to say it was my best subject in high school, but there was also an underlying passion. I think with the A-type personalities, getting things to balance and conform, it really satisfied an innate need in me. So it was always the plan. It really was. I can't say there was a specific event that led me to follow this route. It was just inside.
Oh, that's brilliant. There's not a lot of people that can say, I found my passion sort of that early on. What do you think is your biggest challenge as a head of finance, and particularly in the private sector, I guess? Right now, we've seen so many things, and, the grey listing, all of these things. Does it impact your business per se? And, what is your role that you play there?
Specifically in my business, it has impacted. we are an ERP implementation company, and when budgets are tight and times are tough, people will put their ERP system on hold. So there's two elements to our business. It's obviously the ERP implementation, but then the post-project support. So luckily, that's obviously always ongoing with customers that have already implemented their systems. So it's been a juggling act between obviously losing out on the project side, but during COVID times, but then also managing the support. So post-COVID is definitely going better and stronger. So yeah, we're navigating it.
Yeah. Everyone is challenged by in some way or form. If I had to say, I feel like you're quite a heart-led leader. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. And it's taken a long time to get there, but I'm proud of it now. And it's allowed me to really form strong connections with people, which I value. Beforehand, it was difficult to accept that I can be emotional, but that's really shaped who I am today. So as I said, I've come to terms with it and I'm proud of it.
That's amazing. It's so good to own your space and be that authentic self, as we said before. Tell me about your leadership influences. Was there a particular person in finance that kind of, spurred you on?
I've been blessed to work with some incredible people. My leadership journey has primarily been with women through no specific reason, but that's who I have dealt with. I had two amazing women that really shaped me and mentored me at Avis. I'm still in contact with both of them today. At the time, our CFO was Michelle Erasmus, and my senior management was Odette Ace, and they taught me so much, obviously on the technical side, but about work integrity. And at the time, they were both mums. I was not, but they really were an inspiration to who I wanted to be. Also, once I qualified, I joined the Psycha mentorship program. Was older than most because of my scenic journey, but I was paired with Chantal Usma, who is the CFO at Bombela Civils, and she taught me so much and guided me through such a different time in my journey when I fell pregnant and had so many internal conversations about being a mum, carrying on my career, and they're relationships that I still value to this day.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we all have this person that kind of you still look back and you go, oh, that's
my person.
I'm implementing still to this day things that you've learned. I have recently had a conversation with someone in a CFO role also, and I wanted to get your take on this. Is, we often speak about you have this role and it's C-suite level, and in terms of your level, you have the strategic, but then you also have a bit of operations. Tell us about what you are responsible for, in your role as head of finance.
I firmly believe that the days of accountants and finance managers sitting behind their computers are non-existent. To be a successful leader in finance, you have to be involved in every single aspect of the business. Ultimately, every department will eventually fall into finance because that's the numbers that people want to see. That's how they measure the success of their business. So you really have to engage with every aspect, from operations to sales to HR, every aspect, in order to get a full and colorful understanding of the business to report back on where we're headed.
So I'm not going to find a CFO behind a spreadsheet in an office anymore.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's still an element. But I think what's important nowadays is that so many of the traditional accounting functions are automated. Even the most complex of tasks, your consolidations, your valuations, etc., they're automated. Well, hopefully they are.
Yeah.
So we're moving away from that, from the finance executives, and we're now required to do more analysis. We have to make comments on those numbers and report them to non-financial people.
Finance for non-financial people. I actually did a course like that. It reminded me of that. But yeah, it must be quite a trick. In terms of C-suite level, where does a head of finance or CFO find themselves, most recently? So from sort of past, we've gone through COVID, had to navigate all of these times. Where do you think they find themselves in the C-suite?
I think a CFO is the right hand person of a CEO. The CEO will make most of their decisions based on the information provided by a CFO. And again, that comes back to not necessarily doing the numbers, but understanding exactly what's going through the business, understanding not necessarily on a transactional level, but the impact of the departments on the financials. And then you're going into the investing, the lending, the growth of the business. And that's where strategic decisions are made.
Yeah. And CFO is obviously quite then very much involved in that strategy, would you say?
Definitely. I think a lot of the ideas operational management have is complemented by a CFO. I heard the most amazing analogy one day where a CEO is pushing for the change, the strategy to take place, but the CFO is pulling back a little bit, doing the risk analysis, saying, what about this, what about that? And that back and forth really complements each other.
Absolutely. We spoke so much about the CFO and where they find themselves. If you had to, mentor a up-and-coming head of finance or CFO, tell us a little bit about, if I wanted to go into that route, I've done all of my bits that I needed to do, and, I've now gone through it, and now I want to push to this next level of my career. What advice would you give me?
I think perseverance is really a strong aspect of somebody wanting to grow in the finance industry. You're going to experience a lot of pushback. There's many of us that want to climb that corporate ladder. So trust yourself and the output that you give to your company, and persevere. And the one thing that has really helped me grow is the relationships that I've built with those that I work with. And I think that's where we're heading. It's relationships. The CFO deals with so many stakeholders, and you have to earn the respect and earn the trust of those that you'll deal with, so that your comment is valued.
Yeah, so true. So let's talk a little bit about when you and I connected a couple of days ago, we spoke about how you felt that head of finance or CFO level should connect more with the people in the team. Tell us how you had to, take that on and implement that in your business today.
I believe that it's a tough road to navigate. As I mentioned, I can be a strong people pleaser, and it's important for me to build relationships. But it's such a fine line to stop being perceived as vulnerable and emotional, especially as a woman in finance. You can be perceived as being emotional, but it's helped me build meaningful relationships within my team. To have taken the time to learn who the person is has built a relationship of trust and respect, so I can really believe in the output that they give me. And if there is a problem or a challenge that arises, they are comfortable enough to come to me and present it without feeling that they would be judged. I reiterate to my team that 99% of problems are fixable. We just have to sit down and be rational about it. And it's really worked for me as a leader to get my team to perform optimally. It doesn't come without challenges. I battle to not take on a personal level the emotions that sometimes come in, especially if my team are going through a rough time. I just want to support them and empathize. But at the end of the day, we do have a job that needs to be done. And especially in the finance industry, you've got deadlines that need to be met. You've got deliverables that need to be reported on. So it really is a balancing act.
Yeah, I can imagine, and influencing from an operations perspective. And I feel that there are so many, what we touched on earlier about a CFO having to be very strategic, but then also very operational. And in your experience, do you influence, HR? Do you get involved in IT? That we can see now that new CFO is now having to be involved there.
I think what's important is to not take over the department. They've got leaders of their own that have the necessary expertise, but you really have to collaborate with them and understand what's going on in their department, because that is going to influence your results and the way you approach your work. It really is a collaboration between all departments, and being able to connect with your peers, the fellow C-suites, your fellow heads of department, and building those relationships to complement each other in a business is really important.
Yeah. I'm really curious because you said I won't be finding you or hopefully other CFOs behind a spreadsheet in the office anymore. And you mentioned, you touched a little bit on automation. What have you implemented in your business?
We are really lucky in our company, being an EMP implementer. We actually have our own automations department. So we have some very clever people that write some incredible code that really assists with integration of systems, automation of what's perceived as your mundane tasks. A lot of companies use a separate payroll system that needs to then go into your ERP system. Our developers have done an automation where this is done automatically on a continuous basis. There's no longer the need to extract that information and do journals into your ERP system. It's done for you. It goes to the next level of reporting, where the system has put together a report and emails it automatically to those that need to get it. There's lots of little things that really make up a big picture. We email out the bank balances every morning to management. This is automatically done. We have a debtors aging that's also emailed automatically, allowing people to make on-the-fly decisions. We no longer have to request somebody to pull a report and wait for that. Everything then adds up to quicker decisions and allowing more time to assist with that strategy of the business.
And I can imagine it makes sense to go that route. What do you think has been the adoption in the finance team? Are some people, do they struggle with this, sort of kind of, modernization of this technology and getting them to help or use this technology?
I think the first thing that people automatically think is, oh my goodness, this is going to take over my role.
Yes.
So there's an HR element, if I can call it that, of just reassuring people that it's there to complement your role. It's there to open up the tasks for the time, rather, for people to think and use their time more effectively than literally punching in numbers all day just to get an output. So that's been a challenge to overcome. Once they realize that, they really embrace it. And they say, we have another little implementation we have is our system automatically retrieves bank statements and pulls it up into the system to do a bank recon. And when that's not working, you'll hear the staff immediately say, I'm not entering this manually, get the system working again. So they really do embrace it once they've come to terms with it, and it allows them to focus on customer queries, supplier queries, things that really involve interaction between people.
So you would say adoption has been, especially when I'm not getting my report anymore.
Exactly.
I definitely want that. That's wonderful to hear that a lot of our companies that we speak to often, there's a large focus on automation and digitization, but I think it's also getting into the space of like, let's take, our systems and modernize it. We all have heard of ChatGPT and any, and there's so many things that's flying from there. I mean, I've heard Bing now actually has ChatGPT 4 and included in there, so you can ask Bing, which we used to use as like maybe a little search engine.
Yes.
So yeah, there's definitely some modernization that's happening. It's great to hear that lots of companies are adopting it in that space.
Definitely, and I think this is an area that the finance team especially can work on, where you first have to understand your current processes. You have to map it out honestly, and so that way you can identify the deficiencies, you can identify the opportunities, and really work on it in order to get that optimization and automation implemented.
Brilliant. You touched earlier on when you applied for one of the big four. And I think, and I want to sort of end our conversation today as to if you, could give yourself any advice back then, what would it have been? So take us through that maybe as our last one.
So when I was following the conventional study route, I had signed for one of the big four firm. And when I failed my CTA the first time around, unfortunately that contract was then null and void. And like I said, I then decided to not give up and go to a smaller firm. But there's an element where I didn't feel good enough. Everybody wants to aspire to have a big four name behind them. So it was extremely defeating, and I had to pick myself up from that. But I wouldn't change my article experience for the world. Being at a smaller firm, I experienced every aspect of a business. We weren't put in a specific department, and that's the only type of companies you deal with. We dealt with every single company, from a one-man band to big companies. And everything happens for a reason. I mean, I moved to a smaller firm where I met my husband, the father of my child, and we're still together.
That is such a great story. I love that story. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us in studio today. It was such a pleasure to meet you in person, and that you've shared so vulnerably with us. Women in finance, mom, wife, and you're doing it all, and that you didn't give up. And thanks for giving everyone else that hope as well.
I truly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.